Instant pancake mix might just be one of the best inventions ever made, but that isn't without its drawbacks, and one of the biggest ones tends to be that the quality suffers with an instant mix. But what if I told you that there's a better way, and this one special ingredient makes it possible? Alright, so quick rundown of what exactly makes a pancake restaurant style or restaurant quality. First thing I'm going to talk about is the flour choice. Why am I using cake flour? That's kind of weird, and I admit it is a little bit weird, but you'll be surprised how many diners do this exact thing. Flour types are important when making pancakes, and cake flour is a great choice because of the extra milling process, which gives you a finer grain of flour. This results in a better texture for the pancakes. They will seem lighter and a little bit more fluffier. Acidity is an important trait when trying to achieve a restaurant style pancake. Gluten development happens when you're making a batter, and the acidity will help break down that gluten, giving a more loose, tender crumb in your pancakes. The second thing that acid does in our batter is it helps initiate a reaction with baking soda, which is really important for getting that nice plush rise that you love to see in a pancake. There's a lot of popular options in pancake batter for acidic agents like buttermilk. We're not going to use buttermilk in our instant mix though. We're going to elect for buttermilk powder. It is still acidic, maybe not as acidic as buttermilk, but it's acidic enough to initiate that reaction that we want, and also to help break down some of that gluten a little bit. Lastly, something I want to talk about for restaurant style pancakes is butter. Yes, that was supposed to be a dramatic reveal. It was a lot less cool than I thought. Butter is important for a couple of reasons, but first off, it adds richness to our batter. And then butter is also nice because it helps brown the pancakes and gives that nice, lovely golden brown color. So this right here is our buttermilk powder. Basically, our buttermilk powder is gonna save time and money. I don't know about y'all, but I tend to waste buttermilk every single time I buy it. The nice thing about this is you can go a week or 2 weeks without making pancakes, and you don't have to worry about this going bad, right? This will not age the same way buttermilk ages. You don't have to worry about the fact that, oh, I haven't made pancakes in 10 days and my buttermilk is, shit. This will save you time and money. The time aspect is the fact that you don't have to go and buy buttermilk when you want to make pancakes, or you don't have to go to your fridge and, pour out the right amount of buttermilk each and every time you want to make pancakes. It'll already be in the dry mix. Now, this is our cake flour. We already touched on the cake flour. And then over here, we have our dry milk powder. Why do we have two types of milk powder? Is that necessary? The reason for that is because this dry milk powder brings an important element to the pancake. Pancakes typically have a creamy, dairy flavor, and in an instant mix, you want to keep that and retain that. For me, an instant mix is an instant if you can't add water as the primary liquid. And so for this instant mix, I still want to ensure that there is that dairy flavor, there is that nutty kind of creamy flavor in it, and the dry milk powder lets that happen for us. So that's why we have it. And then we simply have, our sugar, we have our salt, we have our baking soda and baking powder. And all of this will make the instant pancake mix. Now that we know all the ingredients of our dry mix, we simply just have to add all the ingredients to a bowl and whisk it until combined. And there you go, you have your instant dry mix. All right, so let's talk about the wet ingredients. The first thing you want to do is actually melt some butter in a skillet. And I actually like to keep an eye on this and let it melt until it even gets not completely brown, like you're not going for brown butter, but I don't mind letting the melted butter sit on the stove a little bit longer because I find it kind of does give a little bit of that caramel flavor. So I basically made brown butter on accident. That's what happens when you film and try to cook. I know someone's gonna be like, actually that's brown butter. You are right if you're in the comments saying that. This was an accident, but it's gonna smack. Inside of a bowl or a container, add eggs, your melted butter, water, some vanilla if you want, and just give that a nice whisk until it's nice and combined. Now that we have our wet mixture, let's make the batter. We want to add our dry mix to our wet mix. Now, I don't know why I decided to add the dry mix to a bowl first, then add it to the wet mix. As you can see, that clearly wasn't working well. But hey, I do stupid stuff in the kitchen all the time. You're gonna see it here. Notice how as I'm mixing the batter, the dry ingredients aren't sticking to the sides of the container or getting stuck in the bottom edges. It really does make a difference to add your dry mix to the wet mix. Now that we finally made our batter, it's time to let it rest for about 10 minutes. And the reason we want to let it rest for a little bit is because it'll allow that reaction between our acid and our baking powder to happen. If you want a slightly thicker batter, just add a little bit more of that dry mix. Today, I went with a slightly looser batter. That's what I was feeling. All right, so we can finally make our pancakes. I have a cast iron out. You don't have to use a cast iron. I personally just like cast iron because it helps you get a nice browning on the pancakes. You're gonna want to add some fat to the skillet, so I'm going with butter. But I just don't do butter actually. I also use a little bit of canola oil, and the reason for that is because it gives a really nice crust on that exterior of the pancake. I grew up eating Southern style pancakes, and I feel like one of the keys to that is some canola oil. Let's not talk about if this is healthy or not, but this is definitely the best combination in my opinion. You get the flavor of the butter and you get the exterior that is nice, caramelized, and crunchy. Now that we have our batter, we can add it to the skillet. If you look closely, we got some bubbles forming on the top of the pancake and the edges are beginning to set. So this is a good sign for us to flip the pancake, and we're gonna let that finish on the other side for about 1 to 2 minutes. We got a little bit of that snap, crackle, pop going on, which is a good sign. You wanna hear that. You're gonna have a nice golden crust waiting for you. And that's really all there is to it. You can enjoy rich, tender, restaurant-style pancakes without having to make them from scratch every single time. The best part about this is that this dry mix right here will last in the fridge from anywhere to 3 to 4 months. So at room temperature, it's 2 months. If that's not enough for you, totally get that. It'll last 3 to 4 months in the fridge, and you can even freeze it for longer if you want to do that. If you want to make these, I have the recipe on my website, and I even made a fun little recipe card that you can download to your phone, or print off as a PDF and put on your fridge if you want, just as a quick reminder on how to make the mix and then how to make the pancakes once you have the mix. Thank you for coming by the Nook. I hope you enjoyed your time here, and I would love for you to stay on the channel if you enjoy this type of content, but really no pressure. At the end of the day, if I can give the gift of making instant pancakes at a way better quality than store-bought and stop you from wasting buttermilk, then that is enough for me. But anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. All right, bye.